Okay, let me get the assembly mode open of Cubify Design. I've been making a lot of 3D models lately, most of them based off of woodworking books, and I want to show how to assemble one of them. Today I made a train. I've got all the parts made already, so let me just bring these in here and put them together. So right now I noticed I have everything turned off because I was showing off the part that I made. Alright, so now we're back to a normal view here. Alright, so let me put down the first piece. First piece is the chassis of the train. Seems like a good place to start. Get back over to the assembly view. And let me add the second piece. We'll start off with the cab. And we'll just keep building this piece out here, and it just so happens to be right where I want to go. Okay. So a lot of assemblies are put together usually using mate or align, sometimes tangent, sometimes orient. In this case I'm going to want to do an align because both of the faces are facing in the same direction. They can specify an offset. They don't have to be flush, but in this case I want them to be. And I just noticed that this piece moved and I don't want that. It's okay where it's at right now, but let's anchor it so it doesn't move again. Alright, let's bring the constraints back out. I want to do an alignment here. And so those are two aligns, and now this one I want to be a mate, because the pieces are facing each other and I want them to butt against each other. So I've already got an offset of 0, but that was under align. So under mate, that was originally how far they were. I wanted to be 0. Distance is 0 apart now. Okay. So that's the first two pieces put together. We'll just keep going now. I'll continue with the cab piece over here. We'll add a roof to it. Okay, so this is fairly off of the direction I want it to be. I'm going to use a triad tool and reposition this a bit. If I don't, because of this minimum motion, the minimum motion isn't always exactly what I want it to be. So let's help the piece out a little bit here. When I switch directions, I usually like to start over again with the triad tool. Otherwise, you can get some interesting offsets involved. And this piece happens to have the notches are supposed to be in the back, so let me spin around one more time here. As you can see, the yellow piece is the direction it is active. Okay, that's close enough. So let me select the, let me turn triad off here. Select the two faces I want to work with. I'm going to mate them. Again, they're facing each other, and I've already got a 0 offset, so that'll bring them down next to each other. And as you'll see in this particular tutorial, I have a cheat sheet. Some of these manipulations are based on the measurements of the pieces, and I don't want to do those in real time. So I want this to overhang right now. I don't know which direction that is right now. Maybe a negative will get me in the right direction, and the amount is 1/16 is what my cheat sheet says, and so that was the wrong direction. So here's my constraints. The last one is the last one that I made. And so let me just change that negative to a positive by getting rid of it. And so now we overhang the other way by 1/16. And that's what I wanted. So you notice there's a standard and a quick. That quick will try to figure out which of these options you want to do, and standard just lets you pick them. Originally I didn't know what I wanted, but now I'm starting to learn these good enough that I just like being explicit. So my cheat sheet is in reference to this, so that's why I'm selecting that. So the overhang is going to be about 1/4 inch. And so this is on the wrong side, so I know I want to change a sign on that. I want to say 1/4 4 here. And it is in a line because both faces are facing the same direction. So there we go. So I got the mate to bring them down, I got the front face, and I got this side, so I got all 3 directions. So he's firmly in place. Let me go up one more layer here. We've got a roof vent that goes on the cab roof, which is just a little prism. And I've really got to get that to go somewhere else here. Okay, and that one's oriented pretty good. I don't really need the triad tool on him. So let's just do a mate to get him down to the right level. Okay. And then some more alignments. And I believe I know this alignment goes with this based on my cheat sheet. And the distance there, so they're in the correct arrangement, so the sign stays the same. This is 1 and 3/8, so I'll do a 1 plus 3/8. And that should get me equidistant on both sides, and it looks like it. And I'm going to get equidistant on the other axis here, and that didn't go where I wanted it to. Alright, so I got the right faces selected. Again, it's in a line because they're facing the same direction. And I believe this is a 1/4. Okay, so yeah, it looks like the same distance on both sides, so he looks centered. So there's one other piece I can add on both sides here. That's a window. So I got a cab window strip here. And I'm going to want to insert 2 versions. And I've been doing this video numerous times because I've kept trying different versions of software for the video capture. I'm starting to get the hang of what I don't want to do during this demo. And one of the things I don't want to do is mate this first. I want to mate it down to this ledge because that's gives me the best access to it right now. So we're going to mate those guys. So it's just going to adjust the vertical. I don't recall if it was visible or not, but it moved. Okay, so that'll close the gap here. Okay, so now now I can mate them because it's not going to hide any of the other geometry that I need anymore. So it brings them in there. And so now I can bring this guy in too. Again, a 0 because I want them to be up against each other. And now I can do a line. I'm going to center this guy on this face, and it's 1 inch from either end, so I can go either way here. Trick is getting it close enough so I can highlight the actual face and not the edges. So again, on a line, they're on the same side. And they're in the right relative direction, so I want to keep the sign the same, but it's a 1 inch magnitude. So we do something similar on the other side here. I probably went a lot further than I needed to on that rotation. And again, the relative positioning is right, so the sign stays, but the magnitude is 1. Alright, so I guess my cab pretty much in order here. I'll start building out the boiler here, and that's going to start with this rear support piece. It's just pretty much a prism. And his alignment is pretty good, so I'll avoid the triad tool this time. I can do 2 mates in a line to get him into position. So those were 2 mates. Now I'll do in a line. I can go either here or here. I'll just do it right here. Again, I want them flush, so distance is 0. Alright, and I want to get the boiler up here, but I've got this dowel hole. There's a couple other pieces that are going to build up into the boiler, so I'm going to do a couple of those first before I set the boiler in place. So that's going to be a boiler dowel that's holding them all together. And a lot of the projects I've done now have had dowels in them, and I've come to realize that I want to do an alignment on the dowel with the hole that's going in before I do any other type of positioning. That just prevents things from spinning around and going in weird directions. Alright, and this guy is going to mate with a couple different pieces, and it's going to be a while before I get the vertical position accurate, so I'm just going to push that through in a rough position for now. So we've got that was a rear support that we did with that prism. I've got a front support that goes on this rod now. And as you can see, his orientation, I'm probably going to want to do a triad here, because that's at least a 90-degree turn I got to do. And so I highlight the direction I want, turns yellow, and then I grab the piece and I move it in the direction that it's confined to rotate in. Alright, so that gets me roughly in the orientation I want. So I can do, again, on a line. I got a dowel and I got a hole for the dowel to go through, so I'll do a line first. And so there's not too many times where I use orient, but this is one of those cases where I need to use it. So right now I've got it locked into the axis of the rod, but I'm free to rotate and I'm free to move up and down. Originally it was probably aligned that I didn't need to do an orient, but you like to put the constraints in there anyway, just so it doesn't move on you in the future. So an orient should rotate this properly to make these faces not parallel, but they should have the same normals. Okay, and then I'll do a mate to bring them together. And again, so I got a 1.207 offset right now. I want to bring that down to a 0. Okay, so it's ready for me to bring in the boiler now, which is the long cylinder that goes across. Of course, cylinder's not quite accurate. It's got a lot of different deviations to it. But this is off at a 90-degree angle to the orientation I want it, so I'll bring in the triad tool and fix that a little bit. Many times I forget to click the triad button off, so it's always good when I remember that. So I can do two mates here. Mate these two, and then the next thing I need to do to get it aligned with in this direction is a new feature on here. So let me do these mates first. Alright, just happen to be able to see through there. Okay, so now the goal is to bring this side flush with this. We've got an arc and a plane, so I'm going to use a tangent. And originally I was wondering what the difference was between outside and inside, but this piece is going to end up inside the arc, so I want to do a tangent inside. Otherwise it would have lined it up so that usually this edge was lining up with this edge over here. So the part was ending up over here. That would have been tangent outside, but this one was inside. So on my previous tutorials that I did that got corrupted and I couldn't use, I would attack the steam stack here, Smokestack. Okay, 90 degrees out, so let me use a triad here, and unfortunately the axis isn't quite the way I want, so this might take 2 maneuvers. Well, that didn't quite end up the way I wanted it to. I guess that's good enough. And this dowel is a little tricky. This is a two-step process. I want to bring the dowel into the smokestack first, because if I don't, I'm going to hide this surface down here, and I'm going to want to use that as my second step. So actually, I guess this is going to be 3 steps because I want to do an alignment. And that's just a really awkward angle that that's at. There we go. So the line worked pretty well there. So now I want to bring this dowel into the smokestack. I'll do a mate with the ends here. So that could have ended up going either way. One piece could have moved and the other one not. Could have gone either way. But I moved them into the position I want them now because I want to have good visibility of these faces here, because I want to mate those next. Okay, and as you see, the rod pushed through the bottom. Everything's tight and locked up in here. There shouldn't be any gaps, so this should be exactly the distance down that I want it to be. There's 2 more pieces that are going to come on here. So let me put those on here. And those are for the front wheels. There's a spacer and a holder. Oh, yeah, they're the first 2 parts. So we got the spacer as the next piece we want to add on here. And like this piece, this is also going to need an orient because it's just rotating around this rod. Of course, I need to get my constraints out. And anytime you've got one circle going with another circle, it's an align operation. So let me spin this around a little bit just to make sure the orient does what I expect. I mean, it would do what I would expect, I just want to demonstrate it. Okay, so it adjusted correctly. And then I want to bring these 2 parts together with a mate. Alright, so that's the spacer, and now we've got the holder. The holder is the one that actually has the holes for the axes. I always like to have it on the proper side of the face that it's joining to. Otherwise things get hidden. So again, I've got a rod in the hole, and those get matched up with a line. Again, he's free to spin, so let me do an orient. And the mate to bring them together. Zero distance. And as you can see, the rod is flush with the bottom, which is the way the measurements were supposed to work out. Alright, so I've got 2 pieces I can add here. I've got the lamp, got the Cowcatcher, pistons, and then I've got wheels. Let me finish this off. We'll work our way down around like this. So we've got 2 domes, the sand dome and the steam dome. I believe the sand dome is the smaller of the 2. That's the only difference between them is the cylinder length. Since this is a larger radius, this one, the smaller one, goes into the larger radius. But since he's off at a 90 degree, let me get the triad out. And I really don't like the way the axes are lining up here, but is what it is. That's probably good enough. Let me rotate around the other side here since that's the way it's pointing. Well, when I do the align, it's not going to be pointing in that direction anyway, so. There we go. I forgot the triad. Cylinder to cylinder is on a line, and then we got the mate to bring the faces together. Okay, so I can do that again with the larger one. And that should be the steam dome. Use the triad tool. For my sanity, I want to move this a little closer to vertical. There we go. So let me do those two steps again. Do the align. Turning off the triad. Then the align. And then the mate. Okay. So I'll do the pistons next. So we got two of those, one for each side. Let me get them on the proper sides of the train here. And I can do these with two alignments. Again, we got like a cylinder to a cylinder, so that's a line operation. Do the same for the other one. And I'll bring out my cheat sheet to get these positioned so there's equal amount on each side. So that's a 3/8 inch, and it's on the proper side of this, so the sign stays the same. So we just enter magnitude, and that's what it looks like. It's equal on both sides. So do the same thing with this one. Alright. So I want to do the wheels last. So that leaves me two options here. Let me work on the lamp next. So we've got the base, the platform that it's going to sit on here. And this particular piece has some small faces I need to select, so zoom in here. So I'll get the small face first, and they're going to be up against each other, so that's a mate. Do another mate here. Okay, and now I'm going to need to align this so that it's centered. And let's see how much that's overhanging here. Let's make sure it's close so I can get my direction right. And do an align here. And that one looks like it's a 1/8. So that probably barely moved because I positioned it pretty close to where it was supposed to be. Alright, so 3 different constraints, so he's locked in place. The housing next. Let's get him level with the base. Let me get my constraints out first. So that's a mate to have them flush against each other. And I can do two aligns. These happen to be the same dimension. So this is a small little face to try to get here, but so that's going to be a line. They're going to be right up against each other. And line it this way. Again, this one is also flush. So we did the mate in two lines, so he's locked in. And then the headlamp itself. So cylinders can usually get away with less constraints because they've got one side as opposed to like two. So align it first to prevent it from twisting around, and then do the mate. And he's locked in. So again, I'm saving the wheels for the end, so that leaves me one other alternative here. And so this is a Cowcatcher. The Cowcatcher is attached with these two dowels. So let me create two instances of this dowel. And let me get them roughly in place. Make sure not behind where I'm trying to attach them, so they don't hide any geometry. Alright, cylinder to cylinder, so that requires an align. And doing the mate to bring them into position with each other. Alright, so there's going to be two other pieces to go on here. We've got this crossbar. And I'm going to want to tilt this just a little bit to show the benefits of doing two lines on the rods there. So we turn that tryout off. Alright, so cylinder to cylinder again. Maybe it's easier from this side. Alright, so that just did the translation, and now we're going to do the twist with the second align here. There we go. And then the mate to bring them together. So one more piece for the front. The actual Cowcatcher. And so he's behind. I don't like that, so let me bring him in front. Still not good enough for me. There we go. And that's way out in left field. Whoa. That looks better. So he's got two holes in the back to receive the rods. So again, align first. And I think he's already in position, so this isn't going to show any real change. But it's still necessary to prevent him from twisting later. And the mate to bring them together. And now the Cowcatcher is on there. So I've got to add the wheels with the axles next. And I like laying them out to the side of the train here. So axle piece. So there's going to be 4 dowels for 4 axles. And the first thing I do is align those. Zoom in a little bit here because those holes are pretty small. And cylinder to cylinder a line. Just going to do that with all four. And I'm going to leave these off to the side and do my wheel assemblies away from the train, so I don't have to keep going around the train. The beauty of having virtual material is later I can slide it right through. It doesn't matter. So we've got two different size wheels. We've got the drive wheels, which are the larger ones in the back. We're going to do those first. Since they're about 90 degrees out of the direction I want them in, I'm going to use the triad tool again. Otherwise, I could put the wheels on backwards. And get a good vantage point on it here. Okay. So click to deselect the original piece so I can focus on the new one. Fix the orientation that I want to adjust. Looks like the green one on here. Trying to get a grip on the piece. There we go. Alright, and now I can bring these into alignment with the rods. The rods should stay in position since they're already aligned to the train, and the train is anchored by me anchoring that base before. So, zoom in to get these little holes here. Oh, yep, there's a triad tool again. Don't need it this time. Do the align. Okay, so use that a little bit. So now I'm going to get these almost flush. They're going to be off by a 1/32, and I believe the direction is going to be negative just by, again, the number of times I've tried doing this video. Let's see if I'm right. I selected them in a different order than the other times. Okay. So I can go back in here and fix the sign. Alright, let's try it again. Select him, select him. Let's try negative. There we go. And gotta sneak in and get this guy. There we go. Alright, so if in the real world I did this and tried to assemble it now, I'd be kind of done for. But since it's computer, we can do what we want. We're going to mate based on the inside of the wheel. And it seems in all these cases when you have one piece up against another and they're moving, there seems to be about a 1/32 space in between them. And again, I believe this is positive. And I did the align. So I'll do an undo on that because I wanted to mate. Alright, now I've got it set for mate 1/32. And hopefully it works this time. Yeah. So I've got a 1/32 space in there and in there. I got the 1/32 offset from the hub axle, whatever there. And so I'll just do that one more time with the other wheels that I've got assembled. Do the mate, do the 1/32. Again, it should be positive. And we're good on that set. So let's move on to the front smaller wheels now. Let's get into position here. and bring those parts in. So those are just front wheels. See what kind of arrangement we got here. Yeah, it's probably right. I'm bringing the triad, fix my 90-degree offset. Alright, now that I've done that, they should be going on the axle in the right direction, not be backwards. So let's align these to the axles. That was not a surface. There we go. I'll do the same thing again as I did with the other wheels. Off by a 1/32. Again, should be negative. Yep. Alright, and now I believe we should just be able to mate these together, and that should complete the assembly. 1/32 spacing in between moving parts. Okay, so hopefully I didn't forget anything here. Let's clear out some of this stuff that we're not using anymore. Alright, and so that's how I usually display my other models here. This one's not in color. I didn't want to go through and add all the color, but there's a video out there that's got this guy in color already, so you can just go look at him for that. And hopefully, if you compare the videos, it looks like it should have all the same pieces on there. So there's the assembly. Thanks.